All right, ready to dive into a book that might just flip your idea of success on its head.
Oh, you mean like completely turned it upside down?
Exactly. We're talking Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Feck. Got the book right here. But we're also tapping into this super cool animated summary from Learning Redefined on YouTube.
Two perspectives. Nice.
Double the insights, right?
And knowing Manson, it's going to be a wild ride.
Oh, yeah, he does not mince
Nope,
words.
he's like that friend, the one tells it like it is. No sugarcoating.
Which honestly can be refreshing, especially in the world of self-help, where it's all rainbows and butterflies sometimes.
Totally.
Yeah.
So many books promising endless happiness. It's almost like a relief to hear someone say, hey, life's going to have some bumps.
Right. Like a reality check.
Exactly. But Manson, he doesn't just leave you hanging. He gives you the tools.
Yeah.
Tools to navigate those challenges.
You have to figure out what's actually worth stressing about.
Yes.
Okay, so Manson kicks things off with this story, really interesting story, about Charles Bukowski.
Bukowski, okay.
So he was this poet, a novelist, and kind of, well, a bit of a mess, by all accounts.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Spent a good chunk of his life as, in his own words, a loser.
Wow.
Yeah, alcohol, gambling, you name it.
Not exactly what you would expect from a self-help book poster child.
Right, exactly. But here's where it gets interesting, okay? After decades of what most would consider failure, an editor takes a chance on him.
Okay.
So you'd expect the story to go like, typical redemption arc. Bukowski cleans up his act, becomes this literary darling.
Yeah, the power of perseverance, all that.
Exactly. But, and this is key, the reality, way more nuanced. See, on Bukowski's tombstone, his epitaph, it reads, "Don't try."
Don't try. Wait,
Ah.
what? That's a head scratcher.
Right, talk about a contradiction.
So is Manson saying, like, just give up on your dreams?
Not at all. It's deeper than that. It's about like redefining success. Bukowski, he found his own path because he embraced those flaws, the imperfections.
Oh, I see. He wasn't trying to fit some mold.
Exactly. He was just himself, unapologetically.
I like that. And that fits with Manson's whole thing, right?
Yeah.
It's not about chasing some perfect happiness. It's about what matters to you.
Yes. And that's where the not giving effect comes in. It's not about being indifferent to everything.
Right.
It's about being choosy with your energy, caring about things that line up with your values.
And letting go of the rest.
Exactly. The stuff that's ultimately meaningless in the grand scheme of things.
It's easier said than done, though, right?
Yeah.
Especially these days. I mean, think about it. We're bombarded with images of everyone else's perfect lives, social media, ads, everywhere you look.
Oh, it's true.
And it creates this feedback loop from hell, as Manson calls it. We end up feeling inadequate, like we're not measuring up.
Ugh. That Learning Redefined a video, it nailed that point. It's like we're told happiness is about more, bigger house, fancier car, the whole 9 yards.
Right. Material stuff.
But Manson, he flips that script. He's like, true happiness comes from wanting less. Or, well, wanting differently.
Wanting differently, okay.
Shifting your focus from, like, external validation to internal fulfillment.
Which, when you really think about it, is kind of like freeing. So how do we actually escape this feedback loop from hell? How do we, like, stop needing more all the time?
Yeah, how do we break free?
Well, Manson says it starts with facing some tough truths.
Yeah.
About life.
Yeah.
About ourselves. And to get this point across, he introduces this character. You got to love this. The disappointment panda.
Okay, you have my attention.
So picture this. A panda, right?
Okay.
But he's wearing this little tiny T-shirt and a sombrero. Adorable, right?
Okay, kind of. Yeah.
But don't let the cuteness fool you. This panda, he's here to, like, deliver the hard truths, the stuff we'd rather avoid. He'll just stroll up to you and be like, hey, life, it's just problems one after another. Get used to it.
Okay, not exactly warm and fuzzy, but I can see how that, that dose of reality could be helpful. Right, like a splash of cold water. Yeah, exactly. Wakes you up.
And this whole life is problems thing, it's not new. Think about Buddhism, right? Ancient philosophies. They've been saying this for centuries. Suffering in some form, it's just part of the deal.
So it's not about avoiding problems altogether, because that's impossible.
Exactly. It's about, like, choosing your struggles, finding good problems to have.
I like that. And it made me think of that example Manson gives about the old lady freaking out over the 30-cent coupon.
Oh, yeah, at the grocery store.
Yeah. Like, on the surface, it seems a bit much, right? Getting worked up over something so small.
Unless that coupon, it represents something bigger. Maybe it's about her independence, her being able to take care of herself.
Yeah, or maybe it's just Like this tiny act of defiance, in a world that can feel kind of indifferent.
Right, right. It all comes back to values. What seems small to one person.
Could be huge to someone else. And that's a good question for the listeners, right? What are your coupon-worthy things? What are those things you're willing to go to bat for, even if others don't get it?
Totally. What really matters to you?
Yeah, and that takes us to one of Manson's big points. Choosing your values. He says the values we pick, they don't just shape our experience, they determine our struggles and our successes.
It's not just the old no pain, no gain thing.
Right, so it's more nuanced than that.
It's about making sure your actions match what you say you care about. Like figuring out what matters to you deep down, and then having the guts to act on it, even when it's tough, even if it means being different.
Give me an example. I'm all about concrete examples.
Okay. Imagine someone who, obsesses over being a famous musician. They dream of the stage, the fans, all of it.
Yeah.
But when it comes to actually, practicing for hours.
The discipline, the setbacks.
Yeah, all that. They'd rather just, watch TV.
Oof, yeah. I think we've all been there. But what does that actually say about their values? It's not really fame they want, is it?
It's the fantasy of it.
Right, the fantasy, not the reality.
Exactly. Their actions don't match their words. And Manson uses this guy, Jimmy, as an example. Jimmy's this entrepreneur, thinks he's all that.
But no accomplishments to back it up.
Zero. All talk, no action.
Ah, so he's mistaking confidence for competence.
Classic Jimmy, right?
Yeah.
And Manson contrasts this with Pete Best.
The drummer.
Yeah, the one who got kicked out of the Beatles right before they blew up.
Oh, yeah. That's rough. Talk about bad timing.
Right. But it's interesting, though, right? Two different people, same event,
Oh.
totally different outcome.
And that's Manson's point, isn't it?
Totally. It's not the event, it's how you respond to it. And that's shaped by your values. Pete Best, he could have spiraled, right?
Yeah.
Become bitter, resentful, the what could have been guy.
Instead, he reevaluated, figured out what mattered.
Exactly. Family, his own music. Even if it wasn't on a huge stage, he chose different values, different ways of measuring success.
And found a different kind of fulfillment. It's amazing, isn't it, how we can reframe even the toughest stuff just by shifting our perspective, focusing on what we can actually control, our values, our reactions, that sort of thing.
Totally. And that takes us to another one of Manson's curveballs. The idea that rejection, even heartbreak, can be good, actually.
He even compares it to Romeo and Juliet.
Right. Talk about a plot twist.
Yeah.
But it makes sense when you think about how much Manson stresses boundaries and taking responsibility for yourself. Like he says, a healthy relationship, any relationship really, needs that ability to say no, to reject and be rejected.
So it's not about finding that perfect someone. It's about finding someone who gets your boundaries, who you can be straight up with, even when it's hard.
Yes, someone who pushes you to grow,
Yeah.
even if it's a little uncomfortable.
Exactly. It's about owning your feelings, not getting stuck in those victim or savior roles that can pop up.
Oof, yeah, those are the worst.
And this all ties back to what Manson was saying about commitment. Might sound strange, but he says real commitment, like saying no to other options, can actually be freeing.
It's like you're making a choice.
Right. And that really hits home for me. And I bet for our listeners too, especially those with that learner mindset. Always curious, always wanting to dive deeper.
But with endless choices out there, it's easy to feel scattered.
Totally overwhelmed. Have you ever felt paralyzed by too many options?
Oh, for sure. All the time.
It's where do you even start? But commitment, it's like this focusing of energy. You can really hone in on what matters.
You're not spreading yourself too thin.
Exactly. Now, this brings us to what might be the most, challenging and liberating idea in the whole book. Death.
Heavy stuff.
Yeah, not exactly light conversation. But Manson makes a strong case that accepting our mortality, as freaky as it sounds, can actually be freeing.
Okay, I'm listening.
He talks about this friend of his, Josh, who died tragically young, and it was this wake-up call. Life is unpredictable, our time is limited, and it made him rethink his priorities.
Wow. Yeah, you realize what you've been spending your time on.
Right. All that time wasted on things that don't really matter.
Where?
And this connects to what Ernest Becker talked about, that our fear of death, even if we don't realize it, drives us to create these immortality projects.
Immortality projects.
Yeah, like the stuff we do, the things we buy, even the relationships we build. It all comes from this need to leave something behind.
To be remembered.
Exactly. But here's the thing, the big aha moment. Embracing the fact that our time is limited, it can free us from that constant chasing.
It's like you can finally get off the treadmill.
Yes. Stop needing external validation and focus on what actually matters right now, in this moment.
Not in some far-off future.
Exactly. Manson uses this image of standing on a cliff, looking out at this vast expanse. It shows how small we are, but also how amazing it is to even be alive.
To experience it all.
And that, I think, is what the subtle art of not giving a feck is really all about. It's not about being apathetic. It's about figuring out your values, deciding what success means to you, and having the guts to actually live that life, even if it means getting uncomfortable sometimes.
It's about finding what you're willing to give a feck about and building your life around that.
Perfectly said. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, listener, we'll leave you with this. What resonated with you? What are you choosing to give a feck about?